A U.S. policy called Migrant Protection Protocols, or MPP, is back in effect along the border. It's commonly known as the Remain in Mexico policy. It requires asylum-seeking migrants to wait in Mexico until their immigration hearings happen. The policy started with the Trump administration, then stopped early this year with President Biden. Now it's back after a court ruling on a lawsuit by the states of Texas and Missouri. We wanted to understand the impact of the policy and some of the reasons migrants seek asylum in the U.S. For the past 2 years, we followed one of the first migrant families sent back to Mexico when MPP started. We want to point out their experience and the volunteers you'll hear from are just one perspective in a highly debated and complex issue. Sandra Sanchez from BorderReport.com brings us this special report.
Carolina Carranza Silva was a hairdresser in Honduras. She was also a political activist, and in 2017, she backed a political candidate opposing their president. She says those who spoke out against their government became targets.
Hay muchas cosas por las cuales salimos.
If they got arrested, they would just disappear.
Había pena de cárcel para los protestantes.
They would throw you in jail if you protested.
That's why she and her family fled to the United States.
Their goal was to enter South Texas, about 1,700 miles away from their hometown of Choluteca, Honduras. But Carolina tells me their journey did not go as they planned.
There's no way to verify the next events they described.
They got kidnapped twice in Mexico.
En México.
In Mexico.
They say at a gas station they asked someone for a ride, but instead were kidnapped and held for ransom. They were held for 7 days in a house near San Fernando in the northern Mexican state of Tamaulipas. Relatives back home had to send ransom money, according to Carolina. Then, another turn of events. Carolina and her family were taken from those kidnappers by a drug cartel. They were driven north to the border and again held for days. Eventually, they say a coyote or smuggler took them across the Rio Grande, and they boarded a raft on August 6th. Overcoming all of that, they finally entered the U.S. near the town of Hidalgo, Texas, and turned themselves in to U.S. Border Patrol agents. But just a few days later, the United States government sent them back to Mexico under President Trump's Migrant Protection Protocols program. MPP began in 2019 and returned migrants to Mexico while they waited for U.S. court proceedings. The Department of Homeland Security said MPP helped restore a safe and orderly immigration process, reducing the incentive to attempt illegal entry, and ensured those who merit protection received the protection they need in a timely manner. More than 70,000 migrants like Carolina's family waited in Mexico because of MPP, according to Syracuse University's research group TRACK, which tracks immigration cases. With nowhere else to go, the migrants camped in squalid border towns like Matamoros, just across the border from Brownsville, Texas. Migrant advocates say the MPP policy strips migrants of their dignity.
Any laws, any policies that contribute to human suffering is not a good policy. It must need to be revisited and reconsidered.
Sister Norma is described as the Pope's favorite nun. She runs the largest migrant center in South Texas.
My experience from MPP, all I saw is a lot of human suffering in the other side of the border.
Nos pueden dar una oportunidad para poder trabajar.
I first met Carolina in August of 2019 in Matamoros. She and her common-law husband Jose and 2-year-old daughter Emily were living on a concrete slab.
Mire, yo no qué educación yo le voy a dar a mi hija si no tenemos nada.
They had little food and just 7 diapers for Emily to last 2 weeks. Children played together on the streets. They washed their clothes and bathed in the river. Emily developed a rash from that. Adults got 1 bottle of water a day, which they shared with their children. Their safety always in jeopardy. Volunteer groups went to Matamoros every day, taking hygiene items, food, tents, clothing, and shoes to the migrants. Carolina told me she believed the volunteers kept them and thousands of others alive. By November, the temperature soon went from over 100 degrees to below 40. Carolina layered all the clothes she had. Emily cried at night under the blue tent they eventually got, complaining of pains in her legs as they lay on a thin sleeping bag. It was 2 days before Thanksgiving. They'd lived in the camp for 106 days. And Carolina was pregnant. Just when her family thought they could take no more, an immigration judge granted the family humanitarian parole. That's when the Department of Homeland Security allows someone into the U.S. temporarily due to an emergency or condition while their immigration process plays out. Because of her pregnancy, Carolina's family was allowed to legally cross the Rio Grande into the United States. Empty-handed, they walked to the Brownsville bus station. Volunteers greeted them with hugs and backpacks filled with clothes and food.
The family is now living with relatives in Houston, but now they're facing new challenges and fears the family could be deported when they finally have their day in immigration court. Coming up, we dig deeper into the family's story and look closer at how the court system is ramping up in Texas to meet a new requirement to handle asylum cases faster.